you very much, Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. I'm Mike Tipping. I represent Senate District 8 in Penobscot County, and I'm pleased to introduce LD 577 and a proposed amendment which would retitle the bill to an act to maximize federal funding and protect Maine's universal school meals program. I appreciate your help and flexibility in amending this bill in light of the rapid and devastating changes in policy at the federal level. In the 3 years since the School Meals for All program was implemented, Maine has seen a 25% increase in school meal participation, and now more than 100,000 kids eat meals prepared at school every day across our state. My own 2 kids, who turned 11 last week, are among them. This program has sparked a revolution in how kids are fed during the school day. We've made rapid progress in serving more local food in schools, seen more student engagement in menu choices, and more schools are taking on scratch cooking as opposed to prepackaged meals. At the same time as it has fed kids, this program has lowered costs for working families. It's estimated that free school meals save families $160 a month for each child that gets breakfast and lunch at school. I've introduced this bill now as a chance to solidify our commitment to feeding all of Maine's children. In light of draconian budget proposals making their way through DC, it would make it harder for schools to feed students and for their families to access federal nutrition programs. These are cuts that are being proposed in order to fund massive new tax breaks for the wealthy. With the proposed federal rollback of the Community Eligibility Provision, or CEP, and proposed 100% household income verification requirement for free and reduced price school meal eligibility, along with proposed cuts to SNAP and Medicaid, we may need to prepare for reduced federal funding for school meals and increased administrative burdens on schools and families. This bill is an attempt to get ahead of these cuts and to ensure that Maine is prepared to support schools through these changes, and we can continue our successful efforts to feed all kids at school at no cost. The first part of the amendment would require that eligible schools participate in the community eligibility provision in order to maximize federal funding. This time, any school is eligible to participate in CEP if they have an identified student percentage or ISP of 25% or more. Students that are automatically enrolled in free school meals through SNAP, Maine Care, TANF, and participation in other programs. There's some folks coming behind me that can better explain all of these acronyms and what they mean. The federal proposal would roll eligibility for CEP back to 60% ISP. It means that fewer schools would be eligible to draw from federal funding and would have to rely on state funding to help administer free school meals. However, the details and timing of these proposed rollbacks remain unclear. Having this law on the books will help Maine to maximize federal funding for school meals regardless of federal changes, even if the federal funding available for Maine is significantly reduced. The other parts of the bill include an additional $6 million for Maine's contribution to School Meals for All, which was included in the governor's biennial budget proposal. This is needed to continue School Meals for All over the next 2 years based on the current projections of federal funding coming into the state. As the Appropriation Committee continues to work on Part 2 of the biennial budget, it's my hope that including the funding provision in this bill will communicate that funding school meals remains a priority for this committee and for our legislature. The final piece of the bill is language to ensure schools and DOE have the administrative and financial support they need to weather the proposed federal changes and the potential decrease in federal funding. This is likely to require an additional cost. For schools in my district, the impact of proposed federal cuts would be significant. It is estimated by Full Plate's Full Potential that over $580,000 in federal funding would be lost next school year, and not a single school in my district would be eligible to participate in CEP, despite significant poverty and hunger. Together, Mainers have made incredible progress in making sure kids don't have to go through their school days on an empty stomach, and that no kid ever has to feel ashamed or singled out because they get a subsidized lunch. We've done so because we know it increases educational outcomes. It lowers costs for families. It's simply the right thing to do for our kids. Today you'll hear from school nutrition professionals, students, educators, parents, farmers, small business owners, and other advocates who will share the important and far-reaching impacts of Maine's school meals for all policy. I believe we must work together to keep our kids safe. Appreciate your consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Any question, any clarifying questions from members of the committee? Yes, Representative Hagan.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I am not opposed to school lunches, but I would love some data on how it increases educational outcomes.
Absolutely. We'll have some folks coming that would be very happy to provide.
Thank you.
Other questions? Representative Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming. Can you tell me if most of the milk dairy products, do they come from Maine farms?
Milk in Maine schools? I believe so. I know I've talked with Maine dairy farmers about that previously, but I, again, have to confirm that with others.
Representative Crockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Tipping. I worked at Oakhurst Dairy for quite a while, up until I can answer that question in the work session. What milk is provided to the schools? Because back when I was a kid, it was whole milk. Curious what it is today.
Well, so there's a number of milk options provided, but I will say, just to be clear, that was the original title of the bill, was having to do with milk and making sure that there was a similar process across all school districts and that everyone had that available. But the bill, as the amendment is provided, is a very different one. So it's just looking at the school meals program in general, making sure that we have schools maximizing the federal funds and that we have state funds available to continue. So originally, this was going to be a very simple bill, one that the committee has passed before, and I appreciate it, on school milk. But now, because of these cuts at the federal level, we're looking at a potentially devastating situation for school meals in general. And that's why we presented the amendment and are here today to talk about the bigger issue.
Thank you very much. Representative Lyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like you to explain a little more for me the fiscal, I see it in the amendment, but how are we going to take care of that? That's a great cost. And I've also seen bills moving forward in regards to kitchens and needs and stuff.
Yes, so I think we have a lot of things to figure out in the budget, how we're going to pay for them. This would have a $6 million appropriation, and then it's unknown exactly how much it'll cost based on what changes are made at the federal level to continue providing school meals for children. But to me, it's a basic moral issue. This is a priority, for me at least, and I believe for this legislature. There are many other things that we fund. We gave $100 million in new tax breaks to profitable corporations last year. We're continuing $500 million in tax breaks for wealthy individuals. I think feeding hungry kids is a higher priority for me, and I'd certainly be happy to be part of any conversation about the budget on that one.
Okay, thank you. And for work session, I'd really like a breakdown, if we can, on how we are going to be able to make this possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
I haven't seen any anymore. So, are there any other co-sponsors in the room? There aren't any folks. I said that already. So I'm going to move to our Zoom participants so that they can catch their bus. And Roz O'Reilly. Good afternoon, Roz.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me and see me all right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Roz O'Reilly. I am a senior at Orono High School in RSU 26. Today, I'm testifying in support of LD 577, an act to maximize federal funding and protect Maine's universal school meals program. I'd like to thank my senator, Senator Tipping, for his commitment to school meals in Maine. I never ate school lunch until 10th grade when School Meals for All made it free for everyone. Now I eat it daily. This program hasn't just changed my routine, it's transformed our entire cafeteria culture. Since the implementation of School Meals for All, the number of students getting school lunch isn't the only thing that's changed at Orono High School. I've seen social stigma dissipate, gender barriers fall, and the school menu flourish. Before, students who got school lunch were labeled poor or lazy, and they were mostly male students. Now, everyone eats school lunch. The gender barrier has vanished. It doesn't matter who you are. You belong in our lunch line. Our nutrition director, freed from chasing lunch money, now creates amazing dishes like carne asada with cilantro lime rice and hot honey chicken croissant. We get to experience global cuisines right in our cafeteria. Even our social life has changed. We now have an Instagram page called OHS Lunch where students review each day's meal. This program connects us in ways we never imagined, and I can't imagine Orono High School without that. LD 577 is essential for keeping this program alive. By maximizing federal dollars before using state funds, it ensures sustainability. The transformation of our cafeteria, from eliminating stigma to building community through our Instagram food reviews, shows why this matters. LD 577 protects a program that has completely changed our school experience. For these reasons, I respectfully encourage you to support LD 577. Thank you for your time and consideration of my testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have for me.
Thank you. Any questions for members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Roz. We appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
So we have, next up, I'll read, first up would be Caroline Trinder, then Whitney Thornton, and Jean Ryder.
Hi there, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Caroline Trinder. I am a school nutrition director, a registered dietitian, and the president-elect of the Maine School Nutrition Association. I live and work in Old Orchard Beach. I'm here today to urge you to do everything in your power to preserve universal free meals for all Maine students, something we've had since March of 2020 by supporting LD 577. Just so you know, the first 2 years of it was the universal meals through the federal government. That's why I'm saying a different date than before. I'm here on behalf of a high school student who 5 years ago on a Friday at noon had to choose between appearing cool in front of their peers or getting a school lunch, knowing it would be the last meal they'd have until breakfast on Monday morning. I'm here for a single parent of 3 children who 5 years ago made $100 a year too much to qualify for meal benefits. Despite working 2 jobs to make ends meet, she was forced to pay $75 a week so her children could eat breakfast and lunch at school. I am here representing local farmers and fishermen who 5 years ago weren't experiencing the demand they are now, thanks to more students participating in school meals programs. In fact, according to data from the Maine DOE, school meal participation has increased by at least 25% statewide since 2020. I'm speaking on behalf of school nutrition directors who more than 5 years ago were expected to become debt collectors when families couldn't afford school meals. Staff still had to be paid and food had already been purchased. The debt often fell on school districts, pulling from the general funds that are supposed to be paying for our educators. Colleagues in the 41 states without universal meals report that school meal debt has skyrocketed compared to pre-COVID times, sometimes by hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that money has to come from somewhere. As a parent, I ask why in 2025, when we all agree that children learn best when they are nourished and not distracted by hunger, is this even a debate? We don't have to advocate for universal busing because it's considered a basic right to our children to be transported to school. We don't show up here fighting for middle school sports uniforms. They're standard. We don't question universal access to teachers because we all agree that educating our children is a fundamental public service. So why are we asking if children should have the right to eat at school? Something just as essential to learning as a ride, a uniform, or a textbook. If we require students to be in school, then we must also commit to meeting their basic needs while they're there. Access to food is a basic human right. Our children, our future, deserve nothing less.
Thank you very much. Any questions at this time from members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you. Next up is Whitney, and followed by Jean, and then Allison Levin.
Good afternoon. I'm Whitney Thornton. I am the food nutrition director in the York School Department, and I live in Scarborough. Maine has made national headlines for what we're doing with school meals, and that's not by accident. We've become leaders in serving innovative, delicious, and locally sourced food that is setting the bar for the rest of the country. But behind those headlines are thousands of people, farmers, food service workers, educators, and advocates who have worked tirelessly to eliminate the stigma around school meals and ensure that every student has access to breakfast and lunch, no matter their family's income. If you stepped into our cafeterias today, you wouldn't see long lines of kids avoiding the lunch line. You'd see packed lunchrooms full of students enjoying real food, Maine-raised beef, local chicken and pork, fresh vegetables, hand-picked apples, and creamy Maine-made yogurt. This is not your standard image of school lunch, and it's time that people did know that. We're feeding students with dignity and creativity and care, and we're supporting Maine farmers and Maine businesses in the process. But if we lose the funding and we have to start charging again, our participation drops. And when that happens, schools will be forced to fall back on cheaper, more processed food. And that's a cycle that we cannot go back to. And let's be clear, hungry kids can't learn. When a child walks into school hungry, no amount of books or laptops or even dedicated teachers can help them focus when their stomach is hungry. Food is not an extra, it's not a privilege. It's a basic need, just like toilet paper in the bathroom or electricity in the classroom. And the ripple effect of feeding kids is real. Though I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, we've seen it, we've all seen it. Fewer visits to the nurse, fewer hallway fights, more engagement in the classroom because a child is well nourished. This is about more than food. It's about setting our kids up for success, no matter their zip code or their background. It's about continuing the momentum we've built here in Maine. We are a model for the nation, so let's not step backwards. So I urge you as parents and as educators, lawmakers, community members, let's support the National School Lunch Program still, and let's support the Meals for All, and we'll keep Meals for All for students in the state of Maine, because our children deserve it, because our farmers also deserve it, and because a better future starts with a good meal.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions at this time? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next up is Jean Riley, then Allison Levitt, and Ryan Parker.
Good afternoon, Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and the esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Jeannie Riley. I am the School Nutrition Director in RSU 14, and I am a resident of Kennebunk. As School Nutrition Director in RSU 14 and a licensed dietetic technician with 28 years of experience as a School Nutrition Director, I urge you to preserve universal free meals for all Maine students. Since the beginning of Maine's bipartisan Healthy School Meals for All legislation, participation in school meals across Maine has increased 25%. In RSU 14, we have seen astounding growth in student meal participation. Some of our schools are hitting twice the number of meals as they served prior to this legislation being passed. Families are utilizing school meals to nourish their children while in school, allowing them to stretch their household budgets to afford life necessities, such as food, medicine, and clothing, and gasoline for their cars. Maine has a long and treasured history of leading our nation. The old adage goes, as Maine goes, so goes the nation. And in fact, when it comes to school nutrition, even before the passage of Maine's School Meals for All legislation, Maine was recognized as a leader in school nutrition innovation, serving delicious meals and incorporating fresh and locally grown fruits and vegetables. Maine was among the first states in the country to pass legislation ensuring that all children would have access to a healthy, delicious school meal every single school day, and once again leading the nation and caring for Maine school children. Other states have followed us, and many states have reached out to us as leaders for guidance. This is the time to continue our commitment to ensuring that Maine school children are adequately fed, because everyone knows that a hungry child cannot learn. And in fact, sitting here today, many of us are hungry because we missed lunch and we didn't bring snacks and we have headaches and we're getting angry, and that's how our kids feel when they come to school without having eaten breakfast and they miss breakfast time. or they don't get a lunch. As I reflect on the years I have worked in school nutrition, it is amazing the impact that feeding all children has had. Looking around the cafeteria in our district, one will quickly notice that a lunchbox is few and far between. Most students are eating a school meal and have visited a salad bar and are drinking Maine milk. I think back to years ago when students felt stigma and shame for accessing a school meal. Those long-held biases are gone. Participating in school meal programs have become an integral part of the school day, and children no longer feel stigma and shame, and children are no longer going hungry. Universal Meals has created a positive ripple effects through our state. Local farmers, producers, and fishermen have seen increased demand for their products as school meal participation has risen, and efforts throughout the state to get local food on local trays has increased. Student studies show consistently that participation in school meals reduce childhood hunger, decrease childhood obesity, and increase student wellness, enhance child development and school readiness, and support learning and improve attendance and improve behavior. School meals have been shown to be the healthiest meals that most children have access to. As a
Could you
school
summarize, please?
I'm sorry.
Could you summarize, please?
Yes. So I am asking you to support LD 577. This bill will help preserve Maine school meals for all legislation by requiring eligible districts to participate in a community eligibility program. I thank you for your time and respectfully ask you to support LD 577. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, Representative Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So really quick, I think you confirmed what I was, I could have asked some of the others, but most of the food provided is from the Maine economy, Maine farmers.
Certainly, we all strive to, there are initiatives within the state of Maine to encourage school nutrition programs to utilize local food. And on top of that, Maine milk, which you specifically asked about, most of us are using local Maine milk. And then local fish, Whitney mentioned local fish, local chicken, all of those, we all strive to put local food on local trays. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, thanks very
Thank you.
much. Allison Levitt, please, and Allison will be followed by Ryan Parker and Kirsten Tenney.
Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Allison Levitt. I am the Nutrition Director for the Lisbon School Department and the current President of Maine School Nutrition Association. Today I'm submitting my testimony in support of LD 577, an act to maximize federal funding and protect Maine's Universal School Meals Program. I'd like to thank Senator Tipping for his commitment to school meals in Maine. $41,795. That is the maximum amount of money a family of 4 can make in order to qualify for free meals according to the federal USDA income guidelines. This amount is higher in Hawaii and Alaska. However, it is the same amount a family in Maine and a family in Alabama can make in order to be eligible for free school meals. We know the cost of living in Maine is higher than it is in many other states. The average monthly rent in Maine is $1,630. The average monthly grocery bill for a family of 4 in Maine is $1,048. The average cost of a family of 4 for health insurance in Maine is $1,500. If you add those 3 numbers together, we've already overexpended by $695. These figures do not include other regular monthly expenses such as utilities, gas for your vehicle, other insurances, etc. In 2021, Maine was the first in the nation to amend its constitution to include the Right to Food Amendment. Initially, this bill was called the Right to Food and the Right to Food Sovereignty and Freedom from Hunger. The right to freedom from hunger. It is in our state's constitution. Why would we not support this freedom in the very place where our students spend the majority of their day? Why would we not support feeding our students healthy, nutritious, local foods at no cost to their family? We don't ask families to pay for busing. We don't ask families to pay for books and sports uniforms. Why should a basic human right be something we are asking our already maxed out families to pay for? We all know that children spend the majority of their time in school, and it is proven that meals consumed at school are often the healthiest they will eat, and sometimes the only meals that they will eat. Prior to the implementation of School Meals for All in Maine, nutrition directors spent an unthinkable amount of time processing paperwork, chasing meal payments, and many other administrative tasks that took away from the development and well-being of our programs. Since the implementation of School Meals for All, I'm incredibly proud of the work my colleagues throughout the state have done, vastly improving the quality of meals through farm-to-school initiatives and going back to more scratch cooking, veering away from processed items. We know School Meals for All in Maine has approved our participation, thus increasing the amount of healthy foods the future of Maine is consuming. Not only did School Meals for All expand meal access to students, it removed the stigma felt on a daily basis by students. In Maine, our motto is Dare Go, I Lead. Maine led the nation to be one of the first states to offer universal school meals for our students. Please don't send us backwards. Please invest in the students of Maine. Please stand by the motto of the state and continue to lead.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Hearing none, thanks very much for your testimony. Next up is Ryan Parker. Ryan's going to be followed by Kirsten Tenney and Charles Marshall. Chelsea Marshall, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, members of the committee. My name is Ryan Parker. I'm not going to read my testimony that's being handed out now. I want to instead just kind of address some of the things that have been raised. You're going to hear a lot of folks behind me talk about the moral issues, educational connections that can be made, and that's all true. But I want to come to you because I work for a nonprofit called Food Corps, and we work all across the country. I'm the program director here in Maine, and we work with lots and lots of schools and school nutrition directors all across the state. In addition to that, I've been a member of my school board in my community here in Maine for two terms, so 6 years. Sat on the budget committee and the education committee. And as a result, I get firsthand knowledge of how school budgets are built and how school nutrition budgets are built and how they're supposed to be separate. But previous to School Meals for All, they were not. What I want to do is answer one of the questions that was asked earlier about how is this going to be paid for. One way or another, it will be paid for because school nutrition directors feed kids. That's why they're in this business, and that's what they do. And we all recognize that kids need to eat in order to learn. So they will feed kids. Before universal meals was passed, my district annually transferred $80,000 from the general operating fund to cover the deficit in the school nutrition budget. Every year, it was just an automatic. Once universal meals was passed, we cut that in half to $40,000 the first year. The second year, $0. Since then, our school nutrition budget has operated in the black. That was true for almost every district in the state. Most districts, by a vast majority, operated in the red. Their school nutrition budgets operated in the red before universal meals. Now, most districts, by a vast majority, operate in the black, which is allowing them to reinvest money into their programs that has long been missing. Representative Mitchell asked, is most of the food served in Maine schools local? The answer is no, it is not, because of the systems that are in place. However, the percentage has increased substantially since universal meals was passed because they're making more money. Most people don't understand how school nutrition programs are funded. It's all about participation, reimbursement from the federal government. The more kids you have participating, the more revenue you get, the more you can operate in the black and reinvest into your programming. Those investments include things like training staff to relearn age-old skills that we've lost as a society to process whole foods that come from Maine farms. It includes minor equipment upgrades that are in no way keeping up with the old equipment that's falling out of repair, but it's at least getting back to a place where we can get our heads above water. It also includes marketing, purchasing more local ingredients. These are things that in turn have a positive feedback loop that get more kids into the lunch line, which increases revenue, which then keeps those programs operating in the black. If you go backwards on school meals in this state, I guarantee you the money will still come from somewhere. And where it's going to come from is property taxes. That's what pays for anything over and above the essential programs and services funding that you all allocate in the legislature every year. It's going to come from property taxes. I can tell you that from having had to do it every year as a school board member. I have a lot more to say about this. My blood pressure's rising, so I'm and I'd be happy to answer any questions and also be here for the work session if you'd like. Appreciate your time and hope you'll support LD 577.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members of the committee? Hearing none, again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Next up is Kirsten Tenney, and then Chelsea, I'm sorry, again, Chelsea Marshall, and Lily Gardner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten. I am part of the Full Plates team, and I am a resident of Washington County, Maine. I'm a parent of 2 children who both eat school meals and enjoy them very much. I'm here today to read testimony on behalf of a member of the Maine Youth Food Council who is also a student in Aroostook County, Maine at Wisdom Junior Senior High School, whose name is Ava. And so, I'm writing this testimony to make you aware of the number of people in our community who rely heavily on the school breakfast and lunch programs. There are many single-person households in our area, whether single mothers or fathers. These parents rely on the fact that their child or children will receive a healthy, well-balanced breakfast and lunch at school. Because we are a small community with very few resources, these meals make a huge difference in our area. Having such a large number of single-parent families means that we have a large number of families that rely on state assistance. Some of our population of parents work shift work, so the students are left home alone to make their meals or find something in the cupboard to eat. With this being said, it makes sense that the students' best meals would come from their school. Once students see the benefits of nutritious and balanced eating that schools provide, they are more prone to eat for those benefits. Not only do free school meals for all lessen the amount of food insecurity, but they also lessen the amount of stress and anxiety that comes with worry about proper nutritional intake. Schools prioritize proper procedures to ensure each student of a certain age is getting the food that they need. Students have so many stresses that come with rising age, and stressing about food should not be one. Whether their parents are facing marital issues, their pet died, they failed a midterm, they have to balance working 2 jobs or all of their extracurricular activities, a lack of nutritional intake, especially at school, shouldn't even be a question. For most in our area, school is a nice, refreshing break from their home life. Like everything in life, there are good and bad things to every situation. With this said, there are pros and cons to living in such a rural area. A pro is that everyone knows everyone, and with this, everyone notices behavioral changes. This is good for the professionals in our school system to do check-ins as soon as they see a change. However, this leads to a major con in our community, as everyone knows everyone and analyzes their normal personalities and behavior. Personal and at-home life is easy to uncover. For some, they enjoy having their school life and an at-home life. Mixing the two can be detrimental to the individual's health, as they feel more comfortable being their true selves in different settings. If school lunch had to be paid for by these students themselves, it would be very difficult. Whether some students need to seek aid to pay for this or not, it would single out those less fortunate and those with greater fortune. Having free meals for all students allows everyone to be financially grouped under the same roof. This belittles the stigma associated with free or reduced price meals only for those who are poverty-stricken. School meals are something that shouldn't be taken for granted or worried about affording. Thank you for your consideration. Ava Lehrman, 11th grade at Wisdom Middle High School.
Thank you for presenting that on her behalf. Questions? Members of the committee? Hearing none. Again, thanks very much for being with us. Chelsea?
Good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Marshall. I am a resident of Camden. I've provided support to child nutrition programs for the last 11 years. Today, I'm submitting testimony on behalf of my wife, who is a third grade educator at Camden Rockport Elementary, MSAD 28, 5 Towns Consolidated School District. Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Emily Spindler, and I'm a third grade math and science teacher at Camden Rockport Elementary School. Today I'm submitting testimony in support of the LD 577, an act to maximize federal funding and protect Maine's universal school meals program. I'd like to thank Senator Tipping for his commitment to school meals. I started my teaching career as an ed tech at the Beach Hill School in Otis, Maine in the early 2000s, long before school meals for all. The lunchroom was always a welcoming place where the food service manager knew everyone's name and everything about their lives. I know, based on living in a town where everyone knows all the details about everything, many families could have benefited from having their children fed and fed well at school. I was a school liaison for the local school food pantry. We knew students qualified for free and reduced lunch, but it was obvious that some students were falling through the cracks. Additionally, I remember having to send home notices of school lunch debt. Students with large unpaid bills would be served a peanut butter sandwich. Now, times have changed, and Maine has led the way. 2 years ago, I returned to Maine to accept a position at Camden Rockport Elementary School. I was eager to return to Maine because of their education system. MS 8028's child-centered approach and the dignity in which they treat all students is one of the reasons that drew me back to teaching in Maine. My current lunchroom has an amazing menu with everything from pasta to build your own burritos to special choice days where our food service manager, Miss Sarah, takes requests from the students. One day, on an early dismissal, no less, she made enough sushi for all 300 students in our building. Every student was allowed this opportunity, either to eat something they loved or try something new. Almost every student ate school lunch that day. School Meals for All reduces administrative burden on food service professionals like Miss Sarah, which allows them to create innovative menus and respond to student feedback. Children need to eat. As teachers, we expect our students to have a typical amount of focus, to attend to lessons, to be kind to others, to grow in knowledge. We expect them to grow to be good humans. Studies show that school meals support learning, attendance, and positive behavior in the classroom. Over 100,000 kids, 100,000 school meals are served every day in Maine. My students eagerly check the menu before lunch and look forward to their favorite meals. They try new things they wouldn't typically get at home, and they love the privilege they have of giving Miss Sarah menu suggestions. Children are already suffering from a myriad of family issues, even in a wealthy area. We see housing insecurity, substance misuse, families with DHS involvement. We can't guarantee that students are safe and healthy at home, but we can make them safe at school. We can take care of them. This includes feeding them. We might be the only kind words a child hears, and their breakfast and lunch might be the only meal that they get. Thank you for your time and commitment to our children, and please support LD 577. Emily Spindler, Camden Rockport Elementary.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing any, but thank you very much for presenting. Lily will be followed by Renee, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, my name is Lily Gardner. I represent the school-based food hub serving the school districts of Lewiston, Lisbon, and Auburn. Our goal is to bring more locally grown food into school meals, creating a sustainable system that supports both our students and the local farmers. We have a 4-year grant through Full Plates to purchase equipment for processing and distributing local farm produce between the 3 districts. Our work has focused on increasing farm-to-school purchases, sharing staff for summer processing, and finding efficient methods to process food in our kitchens to increase scratch cooking. We are also currently creating a toolkit to help other districts replicate this model. However, with the proposed cuts and changes to federal programs like CEP, we are deeply concerned about the future of our efforts. Our momentum was rising at the start of this school year. For example, in Auburn School District, in a month-by-month comparison, there were some months showing a 35% increase in local procurement from the following year, with over 25 farmers being featured in their school menu this year. The loss of local farm to schools was the first massive hit in our progress. Without the funding, we have less resources to continue this work. And with the increased administrative burden from these policy changes, we risk losing valuable time that we need to focus on improving school meals and supporting our farmers. The stakes are high. If these changes go through, our momentum will stall and we won't be able to continue creating the kind of food system that benefits Maine's children, farmers, and communities. We urge the committee to support this bill, ensuring that Maine schools continue to have access to the resources they need to support local food sourcing, streamline operations, and create lasting partnerships with our Maine farmers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from members of the committee? Hearing none, thank you very much for your testimony. Renee. Renee will be followed by Patrick.
Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Renee Page. I am Executive Director at Healthy Communities of the Capital Area, a Maine Prevention Network lead organization, and home to Maine Farm and Seed School and Maine Farm and Seed Institution. HCCA is in Hollowell, and I live in Farmingdale. Today, I'm submitting testimony in support of LD 577, an act to maximize federal funding and protect Maine's Universal School Meals Program. I'd like to thank Senator Tipping for his commitment to school meals in Maine. HCCA supports School Meals for All as a public health intervention. Given Maine's high rates of food insecurity and diet-related chronic disease and addiction, School Meals for All is a powerful strategy to address these issues through increased access to healthier foods. We know that diets rich in fresh, local food impact long-term health outcomes, thereby decreasing the costly burden of chronic disease and addiction and improving overall quality of life. With abrupt federal funding cuts to the Patrick Leahy Farm to School Grant Program, the Local Foods for School Program, and the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program, and potential cuts to community eligibility, it is imperative that we sustain state programs like School Meals for All to minimize the disruption to school meals as much as possible. Additionally, School Meals for All increases participation in local food procurement, resulting in new markets for Maine's food producers who are already feeling the impacts of the aforementioned federal cuts and others. As we often say, farm to school is a triple win. A win for kids, a win for farmers, and a win for communities. Sustaining School Meals for All will help continue the farm to school momentum that has been built over the past several years in Maine. Thank you, Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and committee members for your time and commitment to children, Maine's children and schools. I'm happy to answer any questions and also can make myself available for any upcoming work sessions.
Thank you very much. Any questions, folks, at this time? Hearing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Patrick is up next. Patrick will be followed by Ashton.
Esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs, my name is Dr. Patrick Tlosky. I'm a licensed family medicine physician who lives in Freeport, Maine, and a preventive medicine fellow at one of our hospital systems here in Maine, and also a father. My daughter does not yet eat school lunches, but she's not yet 2, so she will someday soon. Today I'm submitting testimony in support of LD 577, an act to maximize federal funding and protect Maine's Universal School Meals Program. One of my favorite parts of being a family doctor is the conversations I get to have with patients and families. I remember doing a physical with a 7 or 8-year-old girl, I'll call her Emily, and I asked, "What's your favorite food?" One of my classic openers. When she answered, "I love salad," I was so surprised by her response, so abnormal for a kid so young, that I stumbled for a moment. And her mom laughed and said, "Yeah, we have salad when we can." I noticed the positive food insecurity screener at the beginning of the visit and asked Mom about it. And she said, "Some weeks are better, some are worse. We get by. I finished the visit, told Emily to keep up the good work, and got Mom in touch with our social worker. I've thought about Emily often since then. This sadly is not a unique visit. Doctors know how important food is for health, and yet sometimes it feels as though when we are encouraging a patient to eat healthy, we're asking them to walk up a vertical wall with their hands tied behind their back because we know of all the barriers, often financial, that prevent them from following our advice. We know malnutrition is correlated to a plethora of diseases, including diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, delays in early childhood development, and mental health disorders. And we also know that school meals reduce malnutrition and food insecurity, reduce obesity rates, improve child development, and often might be the healthiest meal a child gets that day. There's also a financial case. The Maine Ending Hunger by 2030 plan cites a total estimated cost of food insecurity for the entire population at over $700 million per year from lost productivity, increased need for special education services, and preventable health conditions, among other drivers. We talked a lot about cost today, and oftentimes think of what it will cost to do something, but we don't think of the cost that will come from not doing something. We need upstream efforts, preventing disease from ever occurring in the first place, rather than reacting to it once it arrives. I can't think of a more fundamental way to promote good health than investing in the food that our kids are eating every day, and making sure that our kids can actually eat in the first place. The people of Maine agree with me, as evidenced by their vote from Article 1, Section 25 of our state's constitution, which states, all individuals have a natural, inherent, and unalienable right to food. I see it as our duty and our honor to uphold that right. Some people may be wondering why I am here as a physician, and you'd be right to say that I'm no expert in the law or in legislative affairs, but I do consider myself an expert in how to keep my patients healthy. And I see LD 577 as a small piece of the puzzle, but a crucial golden opportunity to invest in the health and well-being of our children. Kids like Emily should not have to just get by in a state like Maine, when we can empower them to thrive. I urge you to support LD 577 for all of these reasons, and thank you again for your service to our great state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, any questions this time? I'm hearing none.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley? Thank you. Ashley, then Heather.
Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Ashley Edmondson. I'm someone who grew up in York, Maine. And I am a, yeah. Oh, you too, okay. And I am a parent of 2 children in the Portland Public Schools. I'm here to voice my strong support for LD 577. Universal school meals makes a difference for families like mine. My husband and I both work full-time, and while we don't qualify for lunch under the current guidelines, we still feel the strain of the rising cost of living, especially in the Portland area. School meals help ease that burden, and they ensure our kids are nourished and ready to learn. So it's hard for anyone to focus on an empty stomach, similar to what my colleague Jeannie had mentioned about feeling hungry and feeling hangry. I often hear this from my 8-year-old if he doesn't have enough food throughout the day. I know I certainly can't do my best at work, and nor can my kids. It's much more critical for them, as hunger can affect concentration, behavior, attendance, and their overall performance in the classroom. A consistent, healthy school meal isn't about just nutrition, it's about giving every student a fair shot at learning and success. Universal school meals ensures that all students, regardless of the family income, can afford food without hesitation or shame. We've heard a lot about that today already. It does remove that stigma around who needs school lunch and who doesn't, and it levels the playing field. I love asking my kids what they tried at lunch. They eat it every day. My 10-year-old told me recently that I just love that you can have choice of a hot meal, a cold meal, and some sides. And as we know, kids do love to have choice. My 8-year-old said, I love the snacks that you pack me, Mama, but I get really hungry at school, so I'm glad that I can walk into the cafeteria and get more hot food there. They're both excited to tell me about the new food that they try. Recently, they tried a bean and cheese pupusa, which has since now become a family favorite in the house and is enriching our own family food culture. Universal School Meals supports not just families, but school nutrition staff too. School nutrition professionals can focus on the quality, student needs, and the local sourcing, which we've also heard quite a bit about, instead of tracking down meal debt and additional administrative burden. 577, LD 577 protects a program that's working. It's good for kids, it's good for schools, and it's good for Maine, and I urge you to support it. Thank you for your time and your commitment to Maine families.
Thank you very much. Any questions at this time? Hearing none. Thank you very much for your testimony.